In 1993, Dr. David Lewis finished his hospital shift, said goodnight to his colleagues, walked through the exit doors into the cold evening air, and completely ceased to exist. But the part that will stay with you isn't that he vanished. It is who turned up living an entirely different life years later and how completely he had buried the man he used to be. So David was a physician, respected, established, the kind of doctor who knew his patients by name, who colleagues trusted without question, who had built a real, visible, functioning life for himself inside the walls of that hospital. Nothing that day was obviously wrong. No breakdown witnessed by anyone, no argument, no distress. He just finished his shift like it was any other ordinary day and walked out. And then the silence started. He didn't go home. He didn't call anyone. The people who knew him best sat waiting and then got worried and then went looking and found nothing. No clear trail, no explanation left behind, just the absence of a man who had been completely present and accounted for just hours before. Missing persons case was opened. Colleagues were questioned and the investigation moved forward and then slowed and then basically stopped because Dr. David Lewis had simply and totally disappeared. And then years later, a man surfaces, living quietly somewhere nobody had thought to look, under a name that wasn't his inside a life that had been built from scratch with extraordinary care. New identity, new routine, new everything. And when the connection was finally made, when someone looked at this quietly living man and said, "We know who you actually are," the explanation that came for why a respected physician walked away from his entire existence in the middle of a hospital shift and buried himself so completely for so long, it was not the answer anyone expected. Because what David Lewis understood better than almost anyone is that in the right circumstances, a person can simply choose to stop being who they are. And if they're careful enough and patient enough and willing enough to let everyone who ever loved them spend years wondering, they can actually pull it off. The 8th, 2008, Josh Maddux told his sister he was going for a walk. He was 18, a free spirit who often hiked alone in the Colorado mountains. Nothing unusual. Strange outdoors, he never came home. For 7 years, his family searched every trail, every town. His sister Kate wrote publicly. Maybe he left to start a new life somewhere. His father called every friend Josh had ever known. Not a single lead. The 7th of August, 2015, a demolition crew tears into an abandoned cabin in Woodland Park, Colorado, 2 blocks from the Maddux family home. A cabin that search parties had walked past for 7 years without looking inside. Inside the chimney, a mummified body. Fetal position, legs folded above his head. One hand pressed across his face. Dental records confirmed it was Josh. He was wearing only a thin thermal shirt. His other clothes, shoes, socks, everything were found neatly folded on the cabin floor directly below the fireplace. That one detail changes everything. If Josh climbed down the chimney from the top to break in, his clothes would be outside. They were inside. He was already in the cabin before he entered that chimney. A piece of furniture had been dragged in front of the fireplace opening. The chimney had rebar running through it. It was not an instant death, the coroner said. Dehydration takes days, hypothermia, a day or two. The death was ruled accidental. The property owner, Chuck Murphy, the man who found the body himself, has never believed that verdict. The case has never been reopened.